But Taro, I can't see his face. Taro, you have this amazing reveal shot, and then you have this blocking his face. So pose-wise, let's change that, right? Pose-wise, let's bring that right here. Right here. That'll feel just that much better. Look at that. Look how cool that pose is. Look at that silhouette. Look at that reveal shot with the head there. You know, that'll feel a lot better, I think. Hey, want to be reviewed? Just send your animations in the Professor Goo review channel in the Discord. Each stream, I'll be going over one animation, which will be randomly selected from that channel. If you happen to be in stream that day, we'll go over it and maybe even jump into a call. If you want to watch these streams live, go to twitch.tv/DylanGoo.
時間ですかあ、素晴らしい。コファル、やってみよう。時間です。
Yo, that's sick. What the hell? Obviously, the lip sync here, not good enough. No lips. Okay, so that's deducted 10 points, unfortunately. Moving on. Let's see. Let's get... let's go. Basically, we have Jigan desu ka, which of course means it's time. Let's see. Let's do... I'm just going to write it down. So we have G. Gan. Jigan de, and then Jigan des. Ah, so there's no mouth shape for des. Am I right? Am I crazy? Hang on, let me play this back.
時間ですか
Minus points. So there's no. It doesn't look like there's an open mouth for de. So we're gonna need to add that in. So that's one thing I think is good. It's like if I can actually sound out what's being said just based on the visuals, that's a good sign. Right now, I can't. So that's a bad sign. Here's what I would do with lip sync. Lip sync is a really big topic. So now that we're here, we're actually gonna be talking about some lip sync fundamentals that I personally follow. So the first thing is like you have this G, but here's the reason why this isn't reading super well, this first shape, is because you have this shape, which is the G shape, right? G, G, G. But notice what I'm doing when I say G, which is G, G, G. Notice how my mouth is getting wider in order to say it, which means you have to start at a more neutral size. This part should not be the same width as the end result, right? So when you say G, you want to make sure that the mouth is stretching wider so that it's a distinctly different shape than the neutral shape. G, G. We want to have a distinctly different shape. And so we're going to just have that just be a little wider. And what I would also recommend
時間です
is to start it just a little sooner.
時間です時間です
G. Notice how before I even let the sound out, my mouth is already in the pose. G, 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 right? So that works pretty well. So if you want to have certain sounds, they actually get their mouth shapes earlier than the sound itself. So that'd be good. Jigan, it also helps it read a little better. Jigan desu ka?
時間ですか
Desu ka. Desu ka. De. Jigan de. Desu. Desu. Why is there no desu? So obviously de. we need an open mouth for de. Des. And then for the S sound, I would actually recommend an open mouth. Des. Well, with closed teeth would be good. Des ka. The same applies to any plosive letters. Your mouth would be in a position before the sound is made. Yes, Poggy, very true. So ma, ba, pa as well.
あ、素晴らしい。
Sorashi is actually fine. I think this is actually, I don't really need to have any notes on this. Ah, sorashi, 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 sorashi. It works pretty well. So I like that. What you're doing right here is I'm going to compliment you on this. So good mouth width. Mouth width is skinnier. That's good. Rashi. And so then you have sorashi. Now, what I would say is like, if I were to give any small nitpicky notes, very nitpicky notes, I would have this width be an intermediary between so and shi, because sorashi, that just makes it a bit more smooth. Sorashi, sorashi. So notice my mouth right here. Sorashi. Like it gets a little bit progressively bigger instead of sorashi. Sorashi. They both work, but like sorashi is just a bit more natural, right? Sorashi versus sorashi. Sorashi, right? Because then you have to open your mouth wider than you actually need to for the ra. So that's the only small nitpick, but it honestly looks great. Now, hand poses, hand poses, hand poses, hand poses. All right, so here's the thing with this hand pose, okay? I obviously know that you're going for a snap. That's good. That's great. But first of all, metal fingers. How do you snap with metal fingers? That I only talk about that because technically snaps are used with flesh, obviously, and they work based on friction. So a good reference for great snapping poses is, of course, Colonel Mustang from Full Metal Alchemist. He's a great snapper, as we know. But you'll notice that it's specifically friction that causes the snapping sound, because the friction builds up pressure, and then I'm snapping, but the snapping sound is actually from the finger hitting your palm. So what's happening really is like you're building up a lot of friction, a lot of power because of the friction, which allows you to build up power. And then the snap actually comes from hitting your palm. I don't know if everybody knows that, but some people think that the snap comes from the actual fingers sliding together, which is not the case. It's basically a finger clap. But what's happening here with a metal finger, first of all, where's the friction? That's a small nitpick. Doesn't really matter. But ultimately, notice how this pose is a little different. So this pose is, of course, my my poor attempt at like a whatever. But this is sort of like how the pose should technically look like, right? So what you have here is pretty good, but ultimately this middle finger should actually be bending a little bit because it should be, again, building up friction. So when you have a pose that is like what you have here, very delicately held at the fingertips, there's actually no pressure being applied. Like this is like, I feel like I've been got. It's just the okay sign, you know? Okay. Okay. So I think if we don't want to, so because again, this is a very delicately placed pose with the okay sign, right? So I feel like if you want to have a snapping pose, you're going to want to differentiate it from that particular thing. Oh, I forgot I can hold control for this. It's really nice. Anyway, it also looks like a rooster. That's true. So you want to have this joint bent. That actually signifies a certain amount of pressure. Now, if you don't want to do that, because this is a pose that you can see in Full Metal Alchemist. It's a really, really cool pose where you can clearly see the pressure being applied inward between these two fingers. Now, another way you can snap, and this is sort of how I snap, is like a more sort of straight fingered snap. So you can actually have something more like this. This doesn't look as strong, as it looks more casual, but it depends on what you want to go for, right? So you could also do something like that if you wanted to. But this is a slightly stronger pose, technically. But this is also acceptable. So those hand poses, hand reference. So the end pose is pretty good. That's a good pose. Usually after a snap, it's finger guns, in case you guys don't know. You could probably honestly bring the finger a little bit further even, just for a better silhouette. Like maybe like right here. That'd be a good silhouette. Because it's also, the further back the finger flies, like the more sort of stylish it is. So like it works out. Like spinning the hand to show the back after the snap would give it more momentum. That's true. You could also do that as well. And that's something that you can get from more reference. But he does spin it a little bit. If you wanted to like have it a bit more, you know, and like have it just be like just super spun, like you could. It would be a lot more stylish. So you could always do that to emphasize it. Nothing wrong with that. I agree with that. Man, that's so cool. I really like these drones that you're doing. So small thing that I would recommend is offsetting the animation. Right now, they all sort of spin at the same time. So notice that? So they're all spinning at the same time. I feel like it's a wasted opportunity. If you offset these motions, it'll feel more complex and more satisfying. So like you've done that a little bit here. For example, this guy's spinning earlier than this guy. That's good. But do it even more. Do it even more. Like Like have another one spin like here at this time, right? Like have it just be like, oh, boom, spin, 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 spin. Like give a rhythm to it, you know?
やってみよう。
Give a rhythm to it, and that'll just make it feel just slightly better. But it's a small thing. It already feels great. Okay, so let's take a look at this. This pose here, you have this really great reveal shot, and that's cool, and you have this camera angle for this. But Taro, I can't see his face. Taro, you have this amazing reveal shot, and then you have this blocking his face. So pose-wise, let's change that, right? Pose-wise, let's bring that right here. Right here. That'll feel just that much better. Look at that. Look how cool that pose is. Look at that silhouette. Look at that reveal shot with the head there. You know, that'll feel a lot better, I think. So I highly recommend adjusting the pose just slightly to be there. And that might mean adjusting the pose here too, and that's totally fine. This snap will work great in this angle too, if you wanted it to, right? It would work great. So give it a shot, see how that looks. And then here you have this pose, which is honestly, this is fine. This pose is really good. Silhouette wise, this is bing. That's good. It's a really good silhouette. Especially with this like cool like sword thing going on in the back. This is a really good pose, honestly. I think this is great. There's a small tangent here with the sword and the hand. I mean, that's kind of like unavoidable. I don't think you really have to do anything about it. If you raise the sword slightly, maybe if it was like here instead, it would read a little bit better. That's just how I would slightly adjust it to get rid of this thing here. Basically, what I mean by this is that like the hand is in silhouette form, the hand would be unclear because you wouldn't be able to see where it ends because it overlaps this shadow. But if you can see where it ends, that's what you want. That's just a little bit better. It's more clear. Let's take a look at a couple other things.
時間ですか？
We have some eye animation here. The scaling of the pupils and then the immediate eye dart upwards is too much at once. I would actually prefer if you reversed that order. So it'd actually be better if you had the eye dart first and then you had the pupil scaling. That would feel a lot better because that actually makes more sense from a sort of acting perspective. Because pupil scaling specifically is there to show people that they're focusing more because they're trying to like reduce the light in their eyes, and like it's a involuntary thing, right? So what you want is like he's looking at something and then it constricts because it's like looking at something bright. That'll feel more natural than constricting and then looking at something, in which case, you know, there wasn't any quote unquote new information in the first angle because it hasn't moved yet. And then it moves around, but it's static. But if you do it the other way around, it makes more sense because it's getting new information and then it scales down. That'll be better. So small thing there. This is a good blink timing, I think, but I would actually time it a little bit more with this eye dart here. So this eye dart here is actually pretty significant. You have it moving from here to here. But I think if you were to have a blink here or save this eye dart until after the blink, that would read just a bit better. That would feel just that much more natural, right? So you keep this here until here, and then you do the pose that you have here. That'll feel just a bit more natural. Yeah.
素晴らしい。Of course I don't.
Sick. Okay. Well, honestly, I think that is pretty much everything. Is it always good to time blinks during major eye darts? Yes, I think so. Personally, I think so. I mean, if you just look at sort of like how I'm typically moving in my mocap, for example, right? I'll be over here, I'll be over here. Notice how like when I look left and right, it looks more natural when I do that. Whereas if I do this, I look sus as fudge, right?